Good morning. If we have any great-great-grandmothers or great-grandmothers, would you please stand or raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you? Okay. Any grandmothers? I know you can stand. Let's get up. And stay standing for just a minute. And any mothers? Well, I would like to say that we honor you on this day. You have been a force, well, maybe not a force, a presence in our life. Well, sometimes a force. You've been a presence in our lives that is just invaluable. And literally, everybody here can wonder where they would be without you. Not here. Okay, let's... last week, we started a two-part series, and it was on the divine. And the divine is made up of three basic components. There is divine order, there is divine emotion, and there is divine thought. And last week we talked about the divine order in the universe and how everything in the universe is divinely ordered. Everything moves absolutely splendid. There is a movement, an evolution that is in order, and that's what makes everything continually progress. Today I'm going to talk about divine emotion. But before I do, I need to tell you that a couple weeks ago I went back to my hometown in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and as I did, I decided to stop by Nunda, South Dakota, which is the hometown of my cousin Ozzie. And many of you have heard me talk about him before. He is kind of a ne'er-do-well. He hangs out at Lars's Tavern, sits on the end stool, greets people as they come and go, and tries to get a free drink now and then. So when I got to Nunda, I went straight to Lars's Tavern because I knew that's where I'd find him. I went in and he wasn't there. So I asked Lars where he was, and he said Ozzie had gotten into a bit of a jam, and the judge had made him do 3 months of community service. And he was now working for the highway beautification system. He said if I went out Highway 56, I was sure to run into him. So I got in my car and went out Highway 56, and sure enough, there he was with another fellow. And I stopped for a moment and just observed them, and something very strange seemed to be going on. Ozzie would dig a hole, then he'd move down 5 feet, and he'd dig another hole, and then he'd move down 5 feet and dig another hole, so on and so on. The other guy would follow Ozzie, and he'd take the dirt that was just dug out and put it back in the hole, move down 5 feet, put the dirt back in the hole, so on and so forth. So I asked him, what is going on? And Ozzie said, usually we work as a team of 3. I dig the hole, the next guy puts the tree in the hole, and the third guy fills it up. But the guy that plants the trees is sick today, so we're doing the best we can without him. Okay. Divine emotion. In Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, he talks about the range of emotions that we have, and he points out that we have 16 primary emotions. And of these 16 primary emotions, 8 of them, the lower emotions, have a tendency to weaken us. They don't necessarily feel good. Sometimes they're deemed as negative, and we push them away. The higher emotions, the top 8 emotions, are more upbeat. They strengthen us. They make us happy. The top ones are peace, love, and joy. And the bottom one, that weaken us the most, are shame, guilt, and apathy. Apathy being a hopelessness, giving up on life, that there's just no reason to live. So of these 16 emotions, the lower 8 are oftentimes thought of as negative emotions and that they shouldn't be. And so we shun them and we try to push them away. But the divine emotion is when all 16 emotions are in balance and in harmony. And when I say in balance, what I mean is that the lower emotions are good to the degree that we use them. They're meant to be They're a part of our divine being. It's just that they have a lesser degree of usage or exposure to them. Think of it like a recipe. If you have a recipe for a wonderful gourmet dish, and that recipe calls for lots and lots of ingredients, every ingredient has a particular dose or a degree that it is to be used. You know, for some there's a cup of something you put in, some there's a tablespoon, some there's a teaspoon, and some there's just a dash. Well, it's the same way with our emotions. The recipe for divine emotion is determining what the benefit or the value of any particular emotion is to the degree that it is used. Now, take shame, for instance. It doesn't feel good, but shame has the benefit of alerting us to something that we've done or some moral code that we broke from the society at large. Shame is when we take on something from the community as a result of not conforming to what they consider to be right behavior. So shame is good to the point that it alerts us, but it is not good to the point that we overindulge in it and carry it forward. Shame is meant to alert us to the fact that our behavior wasn't quite right and then self-correct our behavior in the future so we don't have that problem again. Now, guilt is very similar, but guilt is when we violated our own internal code, when we go against our inner instinct or our intuition, and we do something that is against our values. For most of us in here, I think that if we stole something, we would probably feel guilty about it. Or if we said something that really hurt another person, we would feel guilty about it. Because guilt is based on the golden rule. Don't do anything to anybody that you wouldn't want done to yourself. And so when we do that, you know, inside we feel this guilt. And once again, that alerts us to the fact that we have done something wrong and gotten off track, so to speak, and that we need to bring ourselves back on track. Now, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but now that they're building new highways and redoing the old highways, they're putting something on the shoulder of the road that is called rumbles. And rumbles alert us when we've kind of swayed off the road and gotten off track. When I went up to Sioux Falls, I was driving down the road. It's a beautiful sunny day. I was relaxed, looking at the sky, and I kind of wandered off to the side of the road. And then all of a sudden, the rumbles, like little tiny speed bumps, the rumbles made out this type sound. The car started shaking, and so I self-corrected and overcorrected and kind of went to the other side of the road and did the same thing. But eventually I got to the point where I was able to bring the car back to the middle of the lane. I self-corrected till I got back on track. And that's what our lower emotions do. They alert us that something is going on, and if it continues, your life is going to get worse. It's going to get darker, and it's going to get more uncomfortable. Now, for years and years and years, throughout history, great philosophers, spiritual masters have talked about a state of mind, a level of consciousness, a way of thinking that is the ultimate in experiencing life. And I believe that ultimate experience, which Jesus referred to as the kingdom of heaven, that ultimate experience comes back to the balance and the harmony of our emotions. When Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom was the mind, your mind. Heaven was the ultimate state of mind, one of peace, harmony, and love. And you were the ruler, or are the ruler, of your kingdom. That means that you get to determine what goes on in the kingdom. And if there is imbalance or if there is disharmony, as the ruler, you can bring it back into a place where there is balance and harmony. So when it comes to shame and guilt, I talked about how when we do something that is wrong, we're alerted to that fact and we can self-correct. But the problem exists that sometimes we take on artificial means of shame. That is to say, we feel shameful about something that there is nothing to be ashamed about. And that sometimes comes from other people criticizing us for one reason or another when they have nothing to criticize. You know, growing up, people become shameful because they're too small, or because they're too tall, or because they're too big, or because they're not smart enough in a certain subject. All artificial means of shame, but we take it on, and it devalues our quality of life. When it comes to those areas of shame that have no being in our consciousness, the best thing that we can do comes with the advice that I'm going to give you right now. And it comes from a Bob Newhart show. In Bob Newhart's show, he played a psychologist. And a woman comes in, he sits down with her across the desk, and he says, I want to tell you up front how I operate. I charge $1 a minute for the first 5 minutes. And the woman says, what if I go over 5 minutes? And Bob Newhart says, oh, don't worry, that's never happened. And she said, well, that sounds just absolutely amazing. He said, so tell me what the problem is. And she says, well, I have this fear that I'm going to get buried alive in a box. Well, Newhart kind of nods his head and says, tell me more about that. Well, she says, every time I think about getting buried alive in a box, I actually get upset, I start to panic, and I feel sick. Bob Newhart nods his head. He says, is there anything else? She says, I don't know. I just keep thinking I'm going to get buried alive in a box. So Bob Newhart says, is that all? And she says, yes. He says, okay, I'm going to give you 2 words, and if you take these words to heart, and if you apply these words in your life, you will never have this fear again. The woman says, wow, that sounds fabulous. So Bob Newhart says, no, I understand that when you think about being buried alive in a box, you get sick. Here are the 2 words. Stop it. And the woman looks kind of surprised, says, I don't understand what you're saying. He says, well, it's very easy. It's just 2 words. And I'm saying, stop it. And she says, well, but my mother, and he says, no, we don't go there. He says, but when I was a little child, he says, no, we don't go there. He says, just stop it. And she says, well, I don't understand. He says, okay. Sometimes this happens, so I'm going to give you 10 words. Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. You know, now that sounds like good advice, and it is good advice, and we can do that. We can stop it, but it's not quite as easy as it seems. It's not easy to stop smoking cigarettes. It's not easy to go on a diet. It's not easy to break habits that we've had for a long, long time, even if they're negative and derogatory to our health or our well-being. But we can do it. And it's the same thing with all those artificial means, whether it's guilt, whether it's shame, whether it's fear, or whether it's a sense of unworthiness that has no basis or no foundation in truth. We can stop it if we set our mind to it. Today we're going to watch a Mother's Day slideshow. And as you do, as all the mothers come up on screen, I just want you to stop and think about the lives that they've had, or the lives that many of you had. All the problems and challenges that they went through, all the worry that they put into raising their children, the fear that something might happen to their children. Motherhood is an incredible undertaking that doesn't just stop when the child turns 21. Many of you can attest to this. I was with a woman in my office some time back, and she came in because she was worried about her son. She felt that he was drinking too much. She felt that he might be in danger of losing his job. She wasn't sure how his marriage was going. Now, the mother was 91, and the son was in his late 70s. Yet she was still worried about her little boy. Don't you all agree, mothers, it never ends? You always wonder about the safety and the well-being of your children. So if they watch the slideshow, just imagine the lives he's had, yet there they are, standing proud and tall. You know, they love their children more than anything, even if some people have a different way of showing it. But nevertheless, they are like the people that make life go forward with a sense of balance and harmony in itself. So we'll now prepare for meditation.